Hey guys. I'm just following on now from the Colleen Hoover video I just done. So now we're going to look at and apply the same principles to Taylor Swift and look at the communications and the information we've got available to see whether there is any potential hypothetical, very hypothetical, um, intentional tortious interference claims that Wayfarer may utilize against her. I don't anticipate they're going to do it. I have to be very clear on that. And I will be looking at this through California law as well, because that's what, if this was to ever become a reality, I anticipate Wayfarer doing that. So the same elements really. Was there a contract in place? There has to be a contract in place for for it to be interfered with. Yes, we already know that there was an agreement between Sony and Wayfarer. We also can suspect, I haven't seen them all, but I do anticipate they exist. I believe the evidence points to Justin Baldoni optioning the books as an individual, not in his capacity as Wayfarer. So there would be something between him and Colleen Hoover. There would then be, I'm expecting something between Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer for the adaptation of the books into the movie. There would be, I'm expecting something to be between Justin Baldoni, or Wayfarer, actually, Wayfarer, and Justin Baldoni in his role as a director and in his role as an actor, as the lead actor. Because, I anticipate that there would be something there to protect him, his rights, his likeness, his voice, his name, much like Blake Lively. There would also be something that would kind of outline hit the terms and conditions of his kind of role as the actor, what he would be remunerated and etc., any expenses, all of that, all of his obligations. Just because he's the head of the studio does not mean that, you know, these things would not exist. There would be something in writing, almost certainly. I think there has to be anyway to comply with some of the guild obligations as well. Things have to be put in writing. They have to be very clearly documented, which we will see when I get to do the Ryan Reynolds video of consequences. So I'm anticipating all of that exists. I haven't seen it. So right now I'm just going to work on the agreement between Sony and Wayfarer. Okay, so was there a contract? Yes, there was. That's the first one straight away satisfied. It gets harder when we ask, did Taylor Swift know about this contract? And the answer is, it's not clear. It's possible. There is nothing that directly says Taylor Swift was aware that there was a contract in place, but that her presence in this kind of industry, the fact that she regularly works with, is best friends with, huge actors like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. She's obviously friends with others as well, like Hugh Jackman, Bradley Cooper, etc., etc. She's obviously got she'll have a like for like as well. That would be in the music industry. It would be contracts for everything. So would I expect her to know that there would be a contract in place? Yes, I would. And there may be evidence that we just have not seen that could expressly confirm that. But there is nothing that in any of the released communications so far that says she definitively had that knowledge. But so that would normally kind of stop everything there. But we'll proceed on the basis that she probably would have known, and should have known, and there is a possibility that there is evidence somewhere that will come to light that she did have knowledge. Okay, so I guess the next element would be, did she intentionally act in a way that was designed to induce breach or disruption? And that's where it gets a bit complicated. So we got, if I share this, these are obviously the messages. This is Blake Lively asking her, come over, tell my director that you love this this thing I wrote, that I wrote this scene that I wrote. Tell him that it's amazing. You don't even have to read it. Just tell him it's amazing." And basically, she's, asking Taylor Swift to leverage a bit of pressure on Justin Baldoni to say, you know, "Hey, you need to, use Blake's kind of version of this rooftop scene." I love it. And that coming from Taylor Swift is not a small thing. When we talked about the Colleen Hoover influence, and well, would the book's author writing to Josh Greenstein and giving all the reasons that she loved Blake's cut over Wayfarer's, would that be influential? I mean, we already knew the answer was yes, but we did go to Josh Greenstein's deposition and definitively confirmed it, because he was asked that question directly and he said yes. Well, Taylor Swift is influential. And not only that, her song was used in this, right? It did eventually. Although that happened a year later, I'm just going to show you this other text message. This is from Taylor Swift. "And I'm picturing you muttering Dracarys, and then I fire off those texts to Austin." So at first I was like, what the hell does that mean? And I have since been told Austin's her brother. He is the one who controls the rights of her music and where it gets used. And if she's saying, "Well, Blake, all you got to do, don't forget you're Khaleesi, I'm your dragon." Great, yeah. She's basically saying to Blake Lively, all you got to do is say Dracarys, and I'm going to fire off a text to my brother, which is implied. It doesn't say expressly, but it's implied that she will pull the song. That's what I'm taking from. I don't know what else it could be. We know that the use of the word Dracarys in Game of Thrones was Daenerys Targaryen's instruction to the dragon, kill that person. And the dragon would then, blow fire on whoever was in front of them, Randall Tarley, and kill them. So we can assume that, when Taylor Swift says, "I'm picturing you muttering Dracarys," that is her referring to, well, Blake's just got to say the word. Quite literally, the word. And then she will fire off a text message to her brother, who, is oversees where her music is used. These messages, as opposed to the other ones which were in 2023, these ones are in 2024, when use of her song, "My Tears Ricochet," was, the discussion, and it was the leverage. Let me just go to a different page. And it was leveraged here. Was it here? Hold on. No, that wasn't it. Bear with. Here we are. It was kind of leveraged here, right? Because this was what they were talking about. There's two things around these text messages, which we know what they were talking about, from Wayfarer's amended complaint and Exhibit A. They wanted the Taylor Swift song, and they wanted the "A Film by Credit," Justin Baldoni's "A Film by Credit" removed. And Jamie Heath is like, "Well, can you call me, or can I call you?" And this was the response they got. Okay, so this is I've gone to Wayfarer's amended complaint. Sony executive, right? So this is the preceding. These are the two messages before that. Those two messages we just saw from Josh Greenstein. Jamie, I have It's redacted on here too. Redacted has gotten Blake to approve a trailer we want with our narration, the chair kick, the bruise, etc. And Blake is calling, we're guessing Taylor, to approve the song. She, of course, just reached out saying she is asking for time with Redacted, who is her editor. We know it was conditional on signing contract, but asking if you will reconsider so Redacted can release this trailer and Blake does not change her mind, recalling, we're guessing Taylor. Jamie Heath says, I'm available to talk on the phone. Calling me if you're free. And then that's where we get the messages then from, I think this is Ange Giannetti, actually, the first one, because that's Sony Executive 1. Jamie, I have Josh on here. I think that's how it goes. But Jamie, all Jamie does is says, I'm available to talk on the phone. Call me if you're free. And then Josh Greenstein, for whatever reason, it's quite inexplicable, then says, you guys don't want to play ball. You're going to delay and greatly hurt the movie. Good luck. That is only if you want to make this date. We are going to need to push. Finish director cut and we can have multiple previews down the road. But if you look at the first message, they're literally saying, and again, I'll do more of this in the Sony breach of contract video, but they are literally saying, look, we know that this was conditional on signing the contract, but will you reconsider? And that is because Blake has leveraged Taylor Swift. Their concern is, look, can you release this? Can you reconsider this? Because otherwise, we don't want Blake to change her mind regarding calling Taylor Swift. Now, does that meet the bar, though, to say that Taylor Swift leveraged this? No, it doesn't, because this is Blake Lively leveraging Taylor Swift, right? And we don't know. We can hazard a guess, but we don't know how much of the hot air was just Blake Lively saying, well, look, I can tell my friend, there is a part of me who thinks actually there was quite a lot, like if Blake Lively had wanted Taylor Swift to pull the song, then that wouldn't have been a problem because, if we go back to this message, all she had to do was say Dracarys, and Taylor Swift said, well, I'll just fire off those texts to Austin. So the date on these are the 26th of April. This is on May the 2nd, these messages. This is May the 2nd. So it's only a few days apart. So far, there's potential. It's not as strong as I think the Colleen Hoover one, definitely. But we would need to see more evidence of what was going on, how much Taylor Swift knew. Where are we? We're at intentional acts designed to induce breach or disruption. There's potential there. I don't know if it meets the bar, I'll be honest. And the timing is it's all right. And we know that it did interfere with the contract now because that text message from Ange, who I'm assuming Ange Giannetti, actually says so explicitly. I know this was conditional upon signing the contract. So Justin's A Film by Credit was conditional. It was incredibly important. Like Blake Lively's, desire to have the entire film relocated to New Jersey was conditional on, she was only going to sign up to the film if they agreed to that condition. But that has now been stripped. That conditional, that important part of the contract has now been pulled away from Justin at Blake Lively's request. But and Taylor Swift is definitely the leverage. And the studio are very concerned about losing the song as well, clearly. And the timing of the two text messages between Taylor Swift saying, well, I can just, let me know and I'll let my brother know to pull the song. They are days apart. They're a week, not even a week. Oh, how many days? Yeah, a week apart. So the timing is there. It's just There is nothing from the problem for me is there is nothing expressly from Taylor Swift to Sony, for instance. Like she's doing it. She is almost going along with it at Blake Lively's behest, but I've not seen any contact that she's making to Sony, which was the difference between this situation and Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover was directly messaging Sony, one of the signatories. Taylor Swift has not done that. But everything else is there. Was there an actual breach or disruption? Well, he lost his appeal by credit. Did she have any other influence? It's not clear. We would need more information, I think. But her name was definitely being wheeled round, and Blake Lively was certainly hitting Sony and Wayfarer over the head. We know that there was obviously the long text message to Justin Baldoni, where she called herself Khaleesi and said, well, that, I've got dragons. And I took that very much as a veiled threat. I'm sure a lot of people did, but I did too. Like, oh, they can protect you, unless you cross me, and then they'll protect me. They're under my control. That's how I read those messages. I'll be really honest. Taylor Swift did not send those messages, though. She initially denied knowledge of them, full stop. But we now know from her text messages she was at least aware of that Blake Lively was fashioning herself to everyone as the Khaleesi and they were her dragons. And it's absolutely absurd that, Taylor Swift was okay with that. But, here we are. Is it enough? No, it's not enough for contractual interference, in my opinion. So what else is there? The damages. I mean, again, it speaks for itself. Yes, Justin lost out. Yes, Wayfarer lost out. Definitely. Definitely. But again, I don't think it is enough. She has to again, so to recap, she has to know about the contract, right? We're not sure. I would say it is highly likely that she would be expected to know about contracts, but that's not the same as having direct knowledge. She has to have intentionally acted to disrupt it. Now, was she backing her best friend and, sort of like having sway over her own intellectual property? Yes. But who was the one actually doing the demands? What on earth would Taylor Swift have to gain by Justin having his film by credit removed? She has nothing. She got no dog in the fight, really, when it comes to the film. That was Blake Lively's request, and she used Taylor Swift's song as that leverage. But I cannot see any justifiable reason why it would benefit Taylor Swift to have that request granted. And there's no evidence she actually made the request either. So I don't think we're meeting a bar here for a claim for intentional tortious interference of contract as far as Taylor Swift goes. She was referenced by Blake Lively in terms of music choices, trailer ideas, aesthetic preferences. And she was definitely leveraged by others as well in terms of, well, Taylor wants this. Let's go to that. Yeah. So here we are. This message again. It's done from my perspective, from Colleen's and from Taylor's, but I haven't seen anything from Taylor Swift to Sony saying, by the way, this is my choice and that's final. Colleen Hoover did do that, and that is why I feel that there is a good, quite a strong tortious interference claim against her. But Taylor Swift does not appear to have done that. So unless there is evidence that Taylor Swift actually contacted, the studio directly and said, "Right, no, this is what I want, you need to do this," then there's no actual interference as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure people will not like that or agree with me, but that is where we are. It has to be, like, she has to have interfered herself. Saying, "Well, I'm not gonna let you use my music," I don't think is enough because she has the right over that anyway. That is her music. We don't know what, and again, this is what we mean, like, this is where we need to see whether there was was there a contract for the licensing of the music? Was she paid? What were the terms of the contract? And it's hard to know, have the full picture without all this information. So I have to kind of treat this as she's been asked to do a favor by her mate. There's no evidence she's been paid. She may well have been paid, but there is no evidence of that. So, there's no real obligation for her if she decides, actually, do you know what? I don't want to let you use my music. Then really, I think her choice that she's entitled to make. There's also nothing that definitively tells me that Wayfarer actually wanted her song. I don't see where they got a choice in this at all because they had a composer who was fired. They had a plan. I haven't seen anything really where Wayfarer are like, "Oh, can you get something from Taylor Swift?" They haven't asked that of Blake Lively. Blake Lively and Sony wanted that. That's different. Um, so yeah, I mean, she appears only really in this as a referenced figure, right? And why does this matter legally? Because California courts require intentional affirmative conduct by, in this case, it would be Taylor Swift. Being admired or referenced or invoked or used as leverage or part of someone else's argument, part of a marketing idea, does not create liability. So, unless Taylor Swift herself emailed a studio, called an executive, pressured someone to withdraw something, advocated for a specific cut, there's nothing about her in the Bake Off and the cut part of it. But, unless she attempted to influence the Bake Off, um, I I'm not finding anything really that meets the high bar for tortious interference exposure. Now, could a claim theoretically be possible? Only if evidence exists, which it could, that she had directly contacted the studio, urged them to, you know, use Blake Lively's car or, threaten to if you don't force Justin Baldoni to relinquish his a film by credit, then you can't use my song. Um, influence something that went against, you know, Wayfarer's rights under their contract or pressure the studio in any way, then yeah, under those circumstances there could be a claim, but we are not seeing enough. I think the strongest, if there is something there that could point to um, a tortious interference claim, for me, the strongest evidence of that is this. Is her literally saying, "I'm picturing you muttering Dracarys," and then I fire those texts off to Austin. But she will find a way to explain that away because it is not clear enough. It does not expressly state, "I'll just pull the song." Let me know if he doesn't do this and this and this. If he refuses to meet to all your demands, let me know. I will pull the song. No problem. We are inferring that because says Austin, she's talking about her brother. Her brother happens to control what happens to her music and where it goes. But that's all we can really do. It's just not enough. So that's my viewpoint. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Um, I'm gonna go and do Matt and Lucy Damon because I think you'll all find that one interesting.